Hello, my name is Claire Leffingwell. I'm a senior psychology major, and I completed the LE400 Internship experience this spring. So I served as a Leadership Challenge Event Fellow, which I will tell you a little bit about what that means. But this presentation essentially serves to show my personal reflection, what I learned about leadership, and overall just kind of a general understanding of what my experience was like. So in this presentation, again, I will talk about what my fellow experience looked like, so what type of tasks I worked on throughout my internship, and what the Leadership Challenge event is, a brief timeline of projects of what I worked through, both semesters, but mostly focusing on this semester. I will tell you about my change components for this, so things that I implemented to make the program better and create positive sustaining change within the program, and some of the challenges and successes that came with those as well. And then I will talk about some leaders that I've observed and what I've learned from them, working with them or observing how they lead through my experience, and then also have some time for personal reflection and growth and how I will use this experience moving forward. So the Leadership Challenge event is one of the pillar programs of the Washburn University Leadership Institute. It is a 2-day orientation and simulation-based competition for high school and college teams from really across the region. So they kind of compete and also go to like a mini leadership conference, and we put that on. It's completely student-led. So my role as fellow is to be the content developer and expert. So I create and write all written content for the simulation. So the emails the students receive, the videos they watch, is all written, and the simulation theme changes every year. I also serve as a team mentor, so there's a team of student coordinators that I'll talk more in depth about in a little bit, but I had the chance to mentor them and make sure that they were growing from the opportunity as well. Obviously, project coordinator, there's a lot of different things going on all at once, all year long, and so making sure that all of those things are happening and so that the event will happen and be successful. And then communication specialist, so sending emails to teams, advisors, volunteers, things like that, making sure that we're messaging the details and like the vision of the event effectively. So that is what the big picture looks like for my experience as the fellow, but also what the program is. So I started as the LCE fellow last July, and so I will go really quickly over this, the tasks for the fall, because most of my internship technically took place in the spring. So in the fall semester was really focused on writing and revising content. So everything for simulation. So doing research for it, starting to write email drafts, things like that. A lot of that took place in the fall, and really early in the fall as well. We also started volunteer and team registration. That all happens in the fall. So we got teams registered. We filled up our team registration really fast with 44 teams. And then we also open volunteer registration. So it takes almost over 200 volunteers to put on the event. And so we get all of those registered and start placing them in their roles. And then we also raise sponsorship. So it takes over $45,000 to put on the event. And so we have a sponsorships coordinator that works with the student team of callers to make that happen. So that's really what, in a big picture, what the fall semester looked like. And then when my internship really truly took place was in the spring semester. So starting in January, we filmed in the KTW studio right when I got back from Christmas break, filming with those PC Memo role players, so the videos that the students watched during the simulation to kind of push it along. That happened in January. Also working on judging and scoring, so updating the judging and scoring documents so that they're ready to go. Since it's a competition, a lot of that relies on making sure that we're doing it properly. We also worked on the banquet. So part of Thursday of the event is a formal banquet, and so I worked with the banquet coordinator to determine decorations theme. We confirmed our keynote speaker in January, and so that was what kind of took place in that month. February was truthfully a super mad dash to make sure the event happens. It's already a short month, and we definitely got everything that we needed out of it. So volunteer registration closed at the end of January, so we started placing volunteers in their roles and making sure they're ready to go, because training also takes place in February. So we held 4 trainings plus some makeup trainings for people who couldn't attend any of the regular ones. So I planned and facilitated and make sure details were good to go for all of those. We finished collecting sponsorships at the end of January and did some wrap up with that. finalized and printed content and sorted it so that the teams could have it at the event, and then really just confirmed final details, bought supplies, stuff like that, all the stuff leading up until the week before the event. The event took place on March 5th and 6th, right before spring break. I know that I'm super biased, but I will say that it was a huge success. And looking through the evaluations, I think that for the most part, people had a really good time, all the student participants and volunteers, which is really all that I could ask for is for it to be a growth opportunity for everyone, but also just a fun time. So since then, I have been collecting and reviewing evaluations, so putting them all into a spreadsheet so that we can look at them for future years. That's volunteer evaluations, team evaluations, advisor evaluations, things like that. I also have been working on I finished compiling feedback packets. So all of the feedback that the judges receive, or the judges give to teams throughout the day, we compile and send back to the team so they can review it and kind of learn if they come in future years, what they can learn from that and overall make them better leaders. Also sending thank you notes to volunteers, speakers, planning team. We want them to be involved in future years, and so we show our appreciation because they just give up their time because they want to show that leadership development is important, and so we're super grateful for everyone who gives up their time and energy to help us put on the event. April, continued working on feedback packets, reviewed the highlight video that we used for promotional reasons. We posted on our social media, things like that, and then completing any wrap-up details of things that pop up, advisors that email with questions, stuff like that. And then May, as we get really close to the end of the year, updating the fact book that we use again for promotional reasons. We sent the feedback packets to the advisors so that they can send it to their team, along with the highlight video. We shared that with them. Finishing evaluations and kind of wrapping that all up. And then I will transition the new fellow into her new role so that she can feel prepared for next year. So I had the opportunity, what's really cool is that there's a fellow every year, but every year the fellow gets to have ownership over certain components of the event that they want to change or improve. So this year I focused on 4 main components, which being the new SLC structure, which I will talk about, and improved accessibility for volunteer training. And I will go in more in depth those ones because those are kind of the bigger ones, but we also had a new venue for the LCE banquet that needed significant decoration and creativity to kind of make it feel more formal. So that was a big change component that I think went super successfully. And then also this was the 10th year of LCE, so we wanted to celebrate appropriately, having that appropriate balance of like nostalgia for the last 10 years, but also like charge and determination to move forward. So our marketing coordinator was amazing and did like 10-year posters, and we made a 10-year video, and things like that to help us celebrate all 10 years. But as far as the other 2 that I kind of glazed over, I will go more in depth and explain what those change components are. So I think the first change component, being the new Student Leadership Council structure, I think it makes sense if I explain a little bit about what the structure used to look like. So on our Student Leadership Council, we used to have a communications team, campus engagement, and community outreach. This year, me and my co-fellows decided to do away with the communications team, kind of mix them in with all the other teams, and then we added a leadership challengement team to the Student Leadership Council. As far as I know, this is something that has never been done before, but it was one thing that I was super passionate about because I wanted more of a team dynamic for the LCE coordinators to feel like they were a part of something and putting on this event and not kind of doing random tasks that all just make it happen at the end. And so, of course, with any big change like this, there were some challenges that came with it. They were completely new processes. We had never done it this way, and so kind of communicating the reason why we were doing it, but also figuring out, like, how does the application process look, and does it look differently? And there were going to be, like, we had a retreat in the fall, and that was something that we added to kind of help people understand why we were doing it that way. There's also no middleman between me and the coordinators. On the other teams that I mentioned, there is a student director sort of in between the coordinators and the fellow that help to mentor the student team, but also sort of serve as a bridge between the two. And I didn't have that. That was something we didn't really, I'm not even sure that we considered it as an option. We just didn't do it. And so that caused some communication struggles, being that I had a lot of stuff that I need to work on personally, but I also had to share it with the team and make sure the team knew what they were doing. And so I think that with some time management problems, again, I had a lot of stuff that I needed to do, but I, by nature, really want to help other people. And so I was constantly asking how I could help them and not maybe getting behind on some of my own stuff. And so those were some of the challenges with this new structure, this new way of doing it. But there were some successes that came out of it too. So we had better relationships formed as a team. I think that having that team dynamic and that in mind, that the team knew what they were working towards, and they all had this commonality of working on leadership challenge event stuff, and so I think that helped them feel more cohesive as a team. I also found that it was easier to show appreciation to my team members, so because there's no middleman, I saw the direct work that they were doing, and I was able to thank them and show how appreciative I am for them, and also help them grow and give criticism when necessary and stuff like that, and that just kind of made that streamlined process easier. It's also a sustainable structure. So the Student Leadership Council next year, Kendall, who is the new fellow, they are keeping with the same structure. And so in my mind, that means that it worked well this year and people perceived it as a good thing. And so they're going to keep it for next year. So that is one of the major change components from this year. Another is volunteer training. So these improvements mainly came out of evaluations that we received and feedback we received from previous years. So a lot of volunteers felt that if they were a returning volunteer, that coming to a 2-hour training was a waste of their time and they were getting a lot of repeat information. And so we created an abbreviated training, so a 1-hour training, so half the time, that would go over less of the basic information and more of the year-specific information. And then we also added a component of, we got a lot of feedback that first-time judges weren't sure what the event would look like because they had never seen it before. And so we added role-play videos, so a video of our students role-playing to show the judges what they should be looking for when they're judging. But also a team time video. So we created those and showed them at training, and I think it helped the judges understand what the event would look like. But again, there are challenges with these types of changes. So the biggest one is that our volunteer coordinator stepped down from her position late last fall. And instead of hiring a new volunteer coordinator, we just decided to put a lot of that work on myself and on some of the staff in the office. And so that there was a noticeable difference in the workload that was there. Which was okay. It just was unexpected. And so with these changes that we were making, they were already in motion because the previous volunteer coordinator kind of pushed them in motion. And when when she stepped down, we were left to create the rest of the change and make sure that they happened. And then also mobilizing 200 people is always difficult. That's how many volunteers it takes. And so there's always going to be, communication problems and things like that. So those are some of the challenges. Again, the successes I talked about where we added the abbreviated training and got good feedback from that was helpful. People even said that we should offer more abbreviated trainings next year. So maybe have 2 options. This year we only had 1 and then 3 normal trainings. So that is good to hear that people appreciated that and recognized that we were doing that to help them. And then we also got feedback that this example videos for judges were really good. As far as alternatives considered in this, I'm sure that we played around with having, instead of an abbreviated training, having a virtual training, like a module they need to go through. That wasn't super logistically possible for what we had to do. But I think the way that we did it was really successful. So throughout my experience, I've had the chance to work with so many incredible leaders, but one of the most impactful groups that I actually didn't really interact with until the event was all of the past student fellows. So part of the 10-year celebration is that we invited previous student fellows to the event to recognize them at the banquet, but also volunteer at the event if they were available. And 7 of the 8 previous LCE fellows were able to attend, which was just incredible. I was able to speak to all of them about their experience with being the LCE fellow. It's something that was a theme across all of them, even in their differences of how they led LCE, executed LCE, was that LCE was truly a defining moment in their life. So they described that LCE had an impact on the way that they viewed themselves as a leader, challenged them, things like that. And so I was able to draw that parallel to LE400 crucible moments. and just knowing that it looks different for everyone in the way that it appears as a crucible moment, but it really gave me understanding of the impact of LCE on the student fellow, that it's really a growth opportunity, developmental, transformational experience that I know that I will consider as a defining moment in my life, and I'm excited to reflect on as I keep moving on in my professional and personal career. The second leader that I will talk about that I've had the opportunity to work with really closely is Lindsay Freeman. So Lindsay works at Advisors Excel. She served as my fellow mentor and community supervisor for LE400 this year. So I started working with her, I think in August, maybe earlier than that. One of the topics of conversation that came up super often was my future. So I was in the process of applying to grad school, thinking about what I want to do with my life. And we talked about not necessarily specifically what job I want, but what I want out of a career and out of a leadership opportunity. And super often, Lindsay was great about reminding me that I need to keep my values and my beliefs in mind when I'm looking for opportunities, and not to sacrifice those, because then I will end up unhappy. And that was something that I hadn't really been told before or encouraged before. And although she didn't explicitly say it, it reminds me of from LE200, the 5 ethical principles of Weinstein's ethical intelligence. So there's 5 ethical principles that you should keep true to yourself in order to be an ethical leader. And so although, again, she didn't necessarily say these exact 5 concepts, she was very strong in recommending that I write down what I value and what I find important in terms of my ethics and my values, and encouraged me to keep these in mind as I grow as a leader. So I really appreciated everything Lindsay did, but specifically this kind of concept in my life. And finally, the last group of leaders that oh my gosh, I cannot stop talking about is the student planning team. This group of students, as I've never worked with a more driven and hardworking group of students. They're outstanding humans, but also exceptional leaders. So just having the chance to sit back and watch them do their thing was just incredible. My goal was to create a team that really felt that team dynamic and that team cohesiveness, to make the best event we could. So one of my goals, and something I tried to show, is that I tried to explain to them why I was doing things and why I wanted things to go a certain way. And that reminds me of the 4th step in Cotter's 8 steps from LE300, the communicating the vision. So I had to communicate that effectively to them, whether that meant being super vulnerable with them about challenges I was going through, things like that. But I also saw them turn it around and do it to students that they were working with. So Chloe Jones, for example, our banquet coordinator, did an awesome job of doing this to her banquet team and communicating what she wanted out of it. And so that was just a super awesome experience. I also saw the team execute it super well, and they were able to take all of our visions and get people on board and excited. Of course, it wouldn't be a true reflection if I didn't talk about personal growth. Obviously, the experience impacted me immensely personally. I developed valuable skills and developed skills that I already had. So not only gained new skills, but also was able to foster those. Public speaking, project management, mentorship, working with conflict, things like that I really learned throughout this experience. Fostered meaningful relationships with community partners, mentors, the student planning team, my peers. Again, I wouldn't have had that without this opportunity. I improved self-awareness and truthfully self-confidence. This is my second fellow experience, but I know that through this experience specifically, I gained so much self-confidence, and just knowing myself better and knowing that I can do hard things was really something that I drew out of this experience. I also challenged myself in areas that I previously considered difficult. I probably still consider them difficult, but at least now I have experience and I know that I can do those things. So using that personal growth, what's next for me? So I will obviously use these skills and experiences to continue developing as a leader. In the fall, I'll be pursuing my master's in educational leadership studies at Oklahoma State University. So student affairs, wanting to work with current leaders and develop them into being our future leaders. My ideal career is to work in a youth development program coordinator. So working on with youth or young adults on how they can be better leaders, and put that in action and test those skills. My dream career is to be a university president, but I know that I have a long way before I get there. And I know that I will use these skills and these experiences that I gained from this internship for the rest of my life, which is super cool. So I am super grateful for the opportunity of being the LCE Fellow. Through completing this experience and working on this extremely successful event, I learned a lot about myself and leadership, and the valuable skills that I gained are irreplaceable. So thank you so much. Thanks.